I want to give thanks and credit to Pinnick because I've started this conversation with him over a long period of time. And initially, he had indicated that he would also consider the nomination for CAF Presidency. And after a long discussion, he then said, look, but what about Patrice Motsepe? And from there, we started the ball rolling. So I want to thank him and also thank Aisha from Sierra Leone and Leswiti from Botswana, because those are the people that we have engaged with. And the first letter of support and endorsement, in fact, came from him, Amaju Pinnick, who is the president of Nigeria Football Association. And he then wrote a long letter of why he decided to support Patrice Motsepe. And I'm sure that it's some of the things that he wanted to share with you, as well as Aisha, who sent the letter, and of course Leswiti McLean from Botswana. But the question of elections of CAF was a decision that was taken by the CAF executive. On the 12th of September 2020, we received the notice that the next CAF elective Congress will be held on the 12th of March 2021 in Morocco. And after that, the CAF regulations were then sent to all national federations, of course, including South Africa, and the closing date for nominations is on the 12th of November 2020. As I speak to you now, our nomination and all the required documents are being delivered in Cairo, Egypt, and we have made sure that we have complied with every requirement. And the requirement essentially is that the candidate must be nominated by the National Association. So in other words, SAFA must submit that nomination. Secondly, every country can only have one nomination, and therefore no other South African can serve on either CAF or FIFA executive positions. And then we received from Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Botswana letters of endorsement and support. And the last issue then is, why did we decide to nominate Patrice Motsepe for the CAF president? Now, the SAFA National Executive Committee approved on a round-robin basis by an overwhelming majority the decision that we must support the candidature of Patrice Motsepe for the position of president of CAF. And it's clearly it is his football and business success that is well recorded, both in our country, in our continent, and throughout the world. In 2017, the Forbes magazine commemorated its centenary celebration and honored Dr. Motsepe as one of the 100 greatest living business minds in the world. And alongside him were given recognition to other global business leaders like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, Jack Ma, and others. So, in terms of Forbes magazine, we have one of the best business brains as a candidate for CAF. Secondly, Dr. Motsepe and his wife, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, joined what is called the Giving Pledge. And in the Giving Pledge, you have people like Warren Buffett, Bill and Melinda Gates. And the intention here is to give away half of their wealth, which is owned by the Motsepe family, to the poor and for philanthropic purposes. During his lifetime and that of his wife and beyond, in April 2019, the Forbes magazine stated that in excess of 500 million had been donated by the Motsepe family for poor and philanthropic purposes by the Motsepe Foundation. Football is a global sport, and one of the things that happened as a result of COVID, that there are three major challenges. One is a health challenge, second is an economic challenge, and thirdly is a football challenge. And when we look at football in the COVID environment and post-COVID, we then ask the question, what are the issues confronting football? And what is the response of African football to these challenges? And clearly, we see that from an African perspective, we have to repackage competitions. Secondly, that stakeholder relationship and partners with the business sector always precede sponsorship or commercial revenue into the sport. So when we look at what are the challenge for African football, we find that some of the biggest investors on the African continent are countries from the biggest economies, the Chinese, the Indians, the USA, Germany. They invest in various infrastructure projects on the continent. And yet, when you ask the profit that you generate, where do you invest it? In the English Premier League, in La Liga, in UEFA, not in CAF. And one of the glaring issues is, do we have a relationship with investors and business on the African continent? Do we engage them? And so if you unlock revenue for African football, we have to address first the relationship that we may or may not have with business on the continent. And we are very convinced that the building of commercial partnership and the link between CAF and business leaders on the continent is a requirement. Because we must also appreciate that the delivery of football has become more expensive. Because now, before you can play the match, you need to satisfy the regulatory requirements. You must have medical tests, the health and medical protocols that must be observed before you can play the match. The other thing is that on the African continent, the major revenue is from ticketing revenue of fans in the stadium. And now there are no fans in the stadium. So that revenue is cancelled. It's gone. It's not there. How do we deal with this question? And clearly we have to look at technology. What are the innovations that we can introduce to make sure that we continue to generate the revenue, to create a safe environment for football on the continent, and to improve competitions? And as we've seen, that when we went to Russia in 2018, the African continent dropped out 5 countries in the first round. And what it means a huge loss for African football. Because if you qualify for the World Cup and you drop out first round without winning a single match, you get 9.8 million US dollars. That's 156 million rand. If you look at the total revenue out of 2019, you find that billions went to Europe. Then it's South America, then it's Asia, and last in terms of revenue is Africa. So clearly you have to improve the quality of football, and therefore you have to unlock the revenue into football, and Africa and CAF must be one of the leading continental bodies in FIFA. So those are the the issues that led us to a clear decision that his business acumen, his observance of governance, his legal training, his global business network and skill, his commitment and love for African football makes him a revolutionary choice for the leadership of African football. And so, in the post-continental and global football environment, requires football's commercial partners to re-examine the competition offering of CAF. It must improve its global profile and standing as a confederation of FIFA, and we believe that he is a candidate that can achieve this for the benefit of African football. The growth of women's football, the introduction of technology and innovation to improve Africa's competitiveness, closing the financial disparity between African footballing nations, strengthening the global zonal federations on the African continent, because the zonal confederations become a major delivery platform for quality football. So if you strengthen and improve football in the zones, you actually improve football on the continent. Building bridges and partnership between football business and strengthening the governance and ethics of football. So those are the focus areas that he would look at. So our nomination of Dr. Patrice Motsepe moves him from the boardroom to the dressing room. But also we understand that in order for the dressing room to be better, to get better results, you must strengthen your relationship with the boardroom. And he is a person that straddles both the boardroom and the dressing room, and we think that he is the most appropriate person that we could offer for the leadership of CAF.
I was here Israel to endorse the candidature of Patrice Motsepe. So that's all. Endorse it. Now, I think that firstly, I would like to extend our gratitude and appreciation to Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Botswana, who have already endorsed Dr. Motsepe to be at the CAF helm. And I think it is important for all South Africans that we support this move by SAFA and thank SAFA for identifying somebody we think that is capable, would make a difference in football. We want to see going forward football, more and more getting stable, characterized through integrity, and be in the news for all the right reasons. And we believe that in Dr. Motsepe we have that, and it's not just football in the field, but also it talks to people relations, our diplomatic relations with other countries, and very firm on our commitment as South Africa to see a better Africa and a better world. And we think that the strengthening of those relations and having a better Africa would need a person who has affinity to the mother continent, and he has that. Somebody will have passion. We have seen Motsepe, coming out very clear in terms of his sense of duty to his country, to his people, to the football fraternity in this very country, and a sense of patriotism. We need that because I think with football we need more conversation about how to strengthen football on the continent, how to focus on football politics not dominating the actual growth of football, and ensuring that people are indeed, given that chance to enjoy football without actually being diverted and distracted to many other what you would call petty political things in football, but also misgovernance. You need to have those people who are beyond reproach in football. I'm glad that one of the areas which has been highlighted by the president of SAFA is on women football. Looking at what is happening, the sponsorship, particularly as it relates to football generally, would want to see more such from the private sector coming to the fore. But of course, you see, sometimes we forget that nobody would want to invest his or her fortune in instances where there are muddy waters. Things are not as clear as they suppose to be. So I think that with these three countries showing that support, we look forward. We will have to engage a president of SAFA. We'll have to engage other countries, including Cote d'Ivoire, which also is putting forth their candidate and the incumbent. We've got to engage them. If we can reach a point where generally there is a general understanding on how we move forward, I think that would be better. Of course, if it comes down to, contest, well, it would be contest. But I think I have a sense that it's possible to persuade other countries and other candidates. But CAF headquarters is in Cairo. And we've had some talks at some point about South Africa, that if South Africa or a South African wins the position of heading CAF, will think of having CAF here in South Africa. I don't think that that would be our position. There's nothing much bad which has been raised, particularly with headquarters of CAF in Cairo, and we want that to continue. We would want to get support of everybody, including Egypt, and we have a good working relation and good diplomatic relations with the country itself. And so here we are, South Africans, who are endorsing the candidate and the candidature of Patrice Motsepe. Thank you very much, Program Director.